Long-term relationships always experience peaks and valleys, and there are an almost unlimited number of reasons for people in a relationship to experience difficulty. There is, however, something that 1 in 5 people have that can be the cause for some of the tension a couple experiences in a relationship. It's dyslexia, and 95% of the adults who have it have never been diagnosed with it. Okay, I understand that most of you are looking at this video and thinking, what the heck do reading problems have to do with a relationship? The answer is that reading issues are only the surface of dyslexia. A dyslexic person goes through a lot more than problems with reading. There are deep emotions related to dyslexia that impact how someone with dyslexia relates to other people. Dyslexics are experts at trying to hide their dyslexia, which can lead to significant trust issues in a relationship. Kids with dyslexia tend to know they are different even before someone officially tells them that they have it. And even if they don't, their friends and classmates will notice, and in many cases this can lead to isolation and bullying. The pain of being hurt in the classroom or by friends and the frustration of learning to read and dealing with the other aspects of dyslexia can leave emotional scars that last a lifetime. Kids naturally want to be part of a group. When confronted with being different, they can withdraw from other kids. They conclude that they can't trust others because others do not recognize their pain, and they are more likely to inflict pain than soothe it. A child, and later an adult, that doesn't trust others is going to have a hard time with staying close to someone. The dyslexic has years of looking at others as a potential source of pain. The dyslexic characteristics of reduced short-term memory and difficulty in placing things in order can also lead to fights about broken agreements and failure to follow household procedures. Think about it. If you honestly cannot remember the details of an agreement, it is unlikely you will be able to keep up with your half of the bargain. A normal reaction to understanding this problem would be, well, just write the agreement of the process down. Then everybody has a clear idea of it. If the dyslexic has substantially overcome their reading difficulties, this can work. But if the printed word is still a challenge, each couple will need to come up with some other way of ensuring both sides understand and agree to something. The part of the brain that deals with time can be significantly impacted by dyslexia. This means that the dyslexic is not purposely ignoring the impact of time on their lives and the lives of others. It means they simply have no active point of reference for what time is and its significance. This can strain a relationship when the dyslexic partner misses or is very late for an important appointment. It can also affect understanding just how long something takes and/or developing an appropriate plan for a project. Again, the tension caused by this issue needs to be addressed in a unique way for each couple. The individual characteristics of each dyslexic dictate a unique workaround or technique for handling this. Working on the issue together can greatly reduce the tension it causes. Obviously, dyslexia is only part of any relationship if one partner has it. It may not have anything to do with the arguments two people experience, but it can play a significant role in causing friction. 1 in 5 people have dyslexia, so it plays a role in a lot of adult relationships. Do you know if you or your loved one has dyslexia? Do you suspect it? How do you know to best help an adult who has dyslexia? You can download our free Detecting Dyslexia checklist to determine if your loved one has dyslexia. The link is in the description for this video. How can dyslexia be causing our arguments? Dyslexia is only about reading. Wrong. There are many other parts of dyslexia that can cause friction in a relationship. First, dyslexic kids learn at an early age that they are different. Other kids are starting to read, but a dyslexic child can't, and that hurts deeply. Dyslexics are very good at hiding both their isolation and their pain, and this can last long into adulthood. You may think that the dyslexic you love is holding something back, but they may just be protecting themselves from prior pain. Second, dyslexic brains are wired differently. The parts of the brain that deal with short-term memory and speech processing have been reduced, and other parts of the brain that can give dyslexics some wonderful gifts have been increased. What this means is that when you ask a dyslexic person a question, you may get an answer to a question that is completely different from the one you asked. You may view this as being evasive or dishonest, and an argument kicks off. If you bring up that your dyslexic didn't answer your question, he or she may respond with strong emotion. This situation has probably happened before, and they can be frustrated and ashamed when it occurs. Third, the short-term memory issue we brought up earlier can make a mess of commitments and promises. The two of you may agree that A, B, and C need to be done, but the dyslexic may complete only part of the commitment or do the steps out of order, leading to poor results. That's an easy recipe for an argument, and it can lead to trust issues. Fourth, many dyslexics have real difficulty with the concept of time. The part of their brain that deals with time has been reallocated to other functions, so time can be unimportant or even meaningless to a person with dyslexia. This isn't always bad. Einstein was dyslexic, and look what he did by viewing time differently. But not placing a value on time can easily lead to missed appointments or lost opportunities because something wasn't done by a deadline. And any of these can easily start an argument. These are just some of the ways that dyslexia can affect a relationship. To learn more about how dyslexia can hurt your relationship, download our free guide, The Invisible Influence of Dyslexia on Relationships. Josh had finally met the one. Mindy was cute, smart, and funny. He couldn't wait until the next time they were together. His heart raced every time he pictured her face. But he was holding back on the relationship. Mindy sensed it every time he dodged questions about his past. She too, however, saw the possibility of a life together with Josh, and she didn't want to ruin a great future by asking questions that bothered him. Josh broke out in a cold sweat even though it was a beautiful 72-degree day. He had spent a lifetime hiding his secret. He was an expert at keeping it hidden away. If he shared it with her, would she walk away? Could he trust her with something that hurt him and his self-image so deeply and had affected all the relationships of his past? Josh flashed back to a picture of himself gleefully playing with other children from the neighborhood. He was happy, but then things began to change. On rainy days, when they played inside, they would pull out picture books and read stories together. The other kids were beginning to understand the connection between the printed words next to the pictures. For Josh, the words were just jumbled squiggles that didn't make any sense. In first grade, it got worse. Kids he had played with at school and in the neighborhood were calling him out as a dummy. "Boy, you sure are stupid, Josh," was a common phrase heard on the playground. Josh countered this pressure with trying to be the nice guy. He would bring candy for the other kids. He would try to help them even when they didn't want help, and he was a pleasant friend that kids would like if he only wasn't so stupid. When being the nice guy didn't stop the shaming, he began to withdraw into himself. His mother noticed he wasn't playing with his friends. She wrote it off as just a normal part of growing up. After high school, Josh had found a good job that did not expose his dyslexia. He was comfortable with work, but his friends were casual, and dating rarely went beyond spending time with a group at a ball game or a bar. Now Josh was sweating because he had to make a choice. Break it off with Mindy to protect himself from the pain of the past, or tell her about his dyslexia and risk being wounded by someone he was starting to care about very much. He was frozen in indecision. Josh decided to take the risk and tell Mindy. She was initially confused, but after listening to his pain, Mindy looked at Josh and told them they would work together to overcome dyslexia and not let it get in the way of their love for each other. Josh and Mindy are not their real names, but this story is all too real for someone with dyslexia. 1 in 5 people have it, and the scars of being called stupid by friends play a major part in the development of their personality and how they live their life. When they get older, hiding dyslexia and the characteristics of being dyslexic can have a major impact on relationships. For more information about dyslexia and relationships, download our free guide, The Invisible Influence of Dyslexia on Relationships. The link is in the description for this video. And hit the subscribe button to never miss our weekly dyslexia help videos. Jordan looked at his watch for the 10th time in the last few minutes. Where is she, he thought. His nephew was coming up to bat in this league championship game, but Beth was nowhere to be found. He watched as his nephew walked to home plate and slammed the first pitch out of the ballpark, winning the game for his team. As Jordan joined the other family members in the wild on-field celebration, he glanced around looking for Beth. Not finding her, he found his nephew getting mobbed by the rest of his teammates. His nephew broke free and ran to his uncle, giving him a big hug and thanking him for coaching him on his new hitting stance that led to the home run. "Where's Aunt Beth?" "I don't know, but when she finds out what she's missed, she will be disappointed. I know she will send you her congratulations later." 2 teammates pulled his nephew away for the team victory picture. Jordan walked to his car while texting Beth. "Where are you?" "I'm home making dinner." Jordan's face turned bright red, but he took a deep breath. "Dinner? You were supposed to be at the game. Tim hit the game-winning home run." It took 10 seconds before Beth texted back. Jordan, I am so sorry. I completely forgot about it. I'll text him right now. Jordan thought it was best not to respond to her text. When he got home, Beth was finishing up cooking their meal. Jordan walked into the kitchen and looked Beth in the eye. We all make mistakes, but this is the 4th time this week that you didn't do something we agreed needed to get done. I know you aren't intentionally blowing off our commitments, but why can't you just do what you say you're going to do? Beth looked at Jordan and paused before saying, the car was acting up again, and then the lines at the store were long, and Jordan said, stop. Just stop it. You could have texted, but you just forgot about something we were going to do again. It's your dyslexia, not anything else, and we've got to find a way to fix this because it is hurting both of us and our relationship. Beth sighed. You're right, but I don't know what to do. Sometimes I can't remember what just happened or any of the things I'm supposed to do. I guess I'm just stupid like the kids told me when I was growing up. Jordan's anger melted into empathy. He walked over to Beth and gave her a tight hug. You're not stupid. You are one of the smartest people I know. We're going to find a way that helps you keep track of things. We're not going to let dyslexia get in the way of us. Beth tightly squeezed Jordan. Okay, I'm skeptical we can find a way, but let's sit down after we eat and figure out what we're going to do. This is a situation that plays out thousands of times each day across the world. A relationship suffers because the dyslexia of one of the partners caused dropped appointments and missed commitments. The first thing for both people to understand is that dyslexia has nothing to do with intelligence. Dyslexics are just as smart as anyone else. The problem with a person with dyslexia not doing what they say they're going to do stems from a reallocation of resources within the dyslexic brain. The resources used to provide short-term memory and an understanding of time and planning skills have been redirected to provide a unique perspective on situations and other gifts such as great creativity. Unfortunately, that reallocation can lead to a lot of tension on a daily basis. Jordan and Beth are going to do exactly what a couple should do when one of them has dyslexia. They need to identify what part or parts of dyslexia are causing problems and then find and use the tips, tools, and techniques to overcome those dyslexia characteristics. Help is out there, but it'll take both parties in the relationship to make sure they are effectively used. This can take a lot of patience for both people. Knowing a technique is not the same as consistently and successfully using that technique. But if both partners work at it, this source of tension can be made to go away. Aaron watched as Austin stormed out of the room. It had happened again. He asked her when she wanted to go shopping, and she had responded with a story about some shoplifters in a store in another city. Aaron thought, I didn't mean to not answer Austin's question. I was paying attention to what he was saying. In fact, I was really trying hard to focus on his question, but sometimes it takes a while for me to put the sounds of each word together into a sentence. And lots of times, that doesn't work out too well. It's my dyslexia. I've always been super sensitive because it made reading hard, but now it's getting in the way of my marriage. To protect myself from those past bad feelings, I will sometimes instantly fire back at Austin that he didn't ask the question in the right way. He then will become frustrated and angry, and in this case he was right. I mean, how else do you ask a question about when we should go shopping? I don't want to make Austin mad, but both answering the wrong question and saying it was his fault keeps happening, and we need to stop it to avoid arguments in our marriage. After a while, Austin came back into the room. He apologized for losing his patience, and she apologized for answering the wrong question. Austin suggested they use a key phrase so that I would recognize when I didn't answer the question. I agreed we should try it. Then she said, Austin, I'm so sorry that my dyslexia hurts us. It frustrates me, maybe even more than you, when I misinterpret a question or when I get defensive. I don't want to fight over this or any part of my dyslexia. I love you and I don't like the tension dyslexia brings into our marriage. Austin gently pulled Aaron into a tight hug. I think we need to look at all of the dyslexia and then work up ways to deal with each part of it. You're great at reading now, and I know that took a lot of work, so that's not a big deal. We've got a strategy for handling answering the wrong question. If that plan doesn't work out, we'll come up with something else. But this is not your challenge, it's ours. Both of us together. And if you agree, let's take care of this stuff to avoid many, if not most, of our arguments. Aaron squeezed Austin tightly. You're going to have to be very patient because no matter what stuff we come up with to overcome these things, I'm not going to get it right the first 10 or 20 times. Austin moved Aaron to arm's length, smiled, and looked into her eyes. I know this is hard and we won't get it right the first couple of times, but maybe we can get it down to below 10 failures. I know you use up a lot of energy battling dyslexia, but you still have more energy than I do, so let's try to get to success sooner than later. Aaron gave a gentle love tap to Austin's shoulder. You're on. Maybe we should turn this into a game. After we pick a tool or technique, we count how many times before it starts to work. If it's less than 10, I get to go shopping. If it winds up more than 10, we find a new tool. It was Austin's turn to nudge Aaron. Wait a minute, under those rules you always win. Aaron quickly responded, and your point is? Austin just smiled and they decided to go get some ice cream before they put together their joint plan to overcome dyslexia. I'm Brett, and I married a dyslexic. I know that sounds a little dramatic, or as if I'm talking at a recovery meeting for family members of people with problems, but it's just so frustrating. We can never be anywhere on time, and it costs us. No matter how long we plan ahead to be at a particular event at a certain time, we are always late. We lose out on the full value of the event, or we lose an opportunity because she does not do what she committed to do. In my head, I know it's her dyslexia that is hurting our ability to do things on time. After we were married, I recognized this problem and thought it was just a quirky personal characteristic. After all, lots of people have challenges with time management. But then I noticed Abby had some other traits like confusing directions and avoiding reading things out loud. I did some research and it became apparent she had dyslexia. I asked her about it and she said she always had difficulty with reading and the other things, but no one had ever told her she had dyslexia. Instead, she was told she just wasn't smart. The other kids harassed her about her problems, but she toughed her way through grade school and high school. As I dug deeper into dyslexia, I found out the symptoms she had were due to a reallocation of the parts of the brain that dealt with reading, understanding what time is, and following directions. The parts of the brain that dealt with those things were being used for some great gifts, like, with Abby, her off-the-charts creativity as an artist and her ability to see and solve complex problems in a different way. Now it was starting to make sense. Plus, I found out there are techniques and tools to help dyslexics with each part of dyslexia. But because of her past intense emotional situations, Abby didn't want to talk about overcoming her dyslexia, and she certainly didn't want to discuss her approach to time and her lack of understanding it. That's where my frustration hit the roof. Here is something we could deal with and avoid the arguments and distrust it was injecting into our otherwise solid relationship. It took a lot of patience, not my strong suit, to get Abby to talk about it. What finally helped us is when I showed her the list of lost opportunities and the money we lost in the last couple of months because she was either late to a commitment or didn't do something at a time we had agreed upon. It was one heck of an emotional discussion, but our talk about time and how it affected our trust in each other was a breakthrough. We've been practicing some of the techniques we're using together to overcome this dyslexia time problem, and things are slowly getting better. I am so glad we were able to talk about Abby's dyslexia, which she never knew she had, and how it impacted our relationship. Stop being a victim. One hurtful self-defense mechanism that dyslexics use to run away from pain goes something like this. You didn't format that question perfectly, so I don't have to answer it. Or, that problem is not perfectly defined, so I don't have to do anything about it. This form of victimhood can be subtly destructive for the person with dyslexia. This approach undermines their self-esteem, leads to poor performance in school or work, and causes problems in relationships. Deep inside, a dyslexic who deploys this "it's not perfect" defense knows they are avoiding the effort necessary to understand and answer the questions and solve the problems presented to them. The emotional scars they have may have left them with a poor self-image. They may be tired from overcoming dyslexia and the other battles of the day. They may be emotionally fed up with being different from others or the frustration of dealing with dyslexia. Ultimately, their fatigue or frustration doesn't matter to the rest of the world. They still need to perform, and by dodging a question or a problem, they are consciously or subconsciously telling themselves the lie that they are not good enough. If used extensively, this defense can seriously erode self-confidence and diminish all the other hard work the dyslexic has accomplished. Consistently telling someone who asks them a question or asks them to solve a problem that poor formatting is an excuse for not answering a question or trying to solve a problem is not going to sit well with the other person. The teacher, professor, or boss might tolerate a certain amount of resistance for a while, but the teacher or boss will eventually view the resistance as either a lack of capability or a sign of revolt. Getting to that point is unnecessary and can only harm the dyslexic and the other party. Deflecting work because it is not perfectly described does not help anyone. Adding unnecessary emotions for both the dyslexic and the non-dyslexic only creates more work and expenditure of extra energy. Telling a loved one they need to perfectly define a question or a problem or the dyslexic will do nothing is likely to cause tension in a relationship. The non-dyslexic can easily view the "it's not perfect so I don't have to respond or do anything about it" approach as an attack by the dyslexic. This is especially true if the question or problem is of a sensitive nature. A non-dyslexic should always try to construct questions and outline problems in a way that makes their dyslexic loved one comfortable. After all, they care about their loved one and hopefully want to give their dyslexic what they need to overcome dyslexia. That said, when this defense is overused, it needs to be discussed between the two parties. Negative emotions always find a way to surface in a relationship. The person with dyslexia needs to accept the fact that the world is not perfect. It's nice when someone takes the time to reformat a question or a problem to help a dyslexic, whether they know the other person has dyslexia or not. The world, however, does not owe the dyslexic anything, including perfectly formatted questions and problems. A person with dyslexia needs to remind themselves of that when they see that they are frequently using the "it's not perfect" defense. At the same time, the non-dyslexic in the relationship needs to be patient and always willing to format their communication in a way that best suits their loved one. Both individuals need to be willing to discuss their progress in suppressing this dyslexic protective mechanism without becoming angry or defensive. Besides reading, one of the big challenges people with dyslexia face is following directions and keeping the steps of those directions in the correct order. Many dyslexics have been called stupid for not being able to follow instructions, particularly written instructions. The problem is not related to intelligence in any way. In fact, dyslexics have the same distribution of different levels of intelligence as the general population. What then is the problem with dyslexia and following directions? The part of the dyslexic brain that provides short-term memory has been reassigned to other tasks. Those other tasks can provide great talents like seeing complicated problems from a unique perspective and developing highly unique and effective ways of solving those complex problems. But that memory reassignment means that the first couple of steps of a procedure are easily overridden by the later steps. So, when it comes to remembering how to start the process, the first step or steps are not available, and the later steps themselves may or may not be available because they may have been placed into memory and then erased themselves. The brain tries to use the smaller short-term memory available to it, but that can lead to a mess of jumbled steps. So how does a person with dyslexia deal with this problem? For many dyslexics, the answer is to change the learning mode. Instead of written directions, watching a video of the process can really help. Different parts of the brain are used to process the visual information of a video. This bypasses the smaller amount of short-term memory and can really help the dyslexic understand and correctly perform the process or procedure. Plus, the video can be rewound and watched again, so the more challenging parts are reinforced and more easily understood. Asking a knowledgeable person to demonstrate the process while the person with dyslexia is watching can be helpful because this also uses visual processing. Another learning mode is to listen to someone describing the steps of the process. The audio processing areas of the brain are used more heavily in this situation than short-term memory. Many people with dyslexia find they can more easily understand even the most complicated process if they listen to a description of it instead of reading it in print. Some dyslexics find it valuable to associate a specific picture with each step of the process. They might sketch the picture for each step on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard. The physical ordering of the pictures can make it easier for these folks with dyslexia to understand each step and the order in which they must be done. Following step-by-step instructions can be a challenge for people with dyslexia. Changing the learning mode, as we have discussed, can go a long way in helping dyslexics overcome this challenge. Closely related to the challenges a dyslexic faces with time is an inability to distinguish the importance of one task or event from another. Many dyslexic children and adults find it difficult to prioritize the things they must do and to organize those tasks into an order that makes sense. In other words, to create a good plan. This difficulty can be because of both the challenge with time and the challenge with basic math. However, a third factor is probably involved. Many dyslexics at some point realize that they have difficulty remembering things that have just occurred or that they just thought about. They develop a reasonable fear that when someone tells them to do something, they will forget, so they immediately perform the task even if it is relatively less important and or can be done later. This tendency, which comes from short-term memory issues with dyslexia, means important things keep getting delayed. Deadlines for schoolwork and later at work get missed, and as a result, the dyslexic gets hurt. Doing everything now, regardless of how important it is, gets in the way of effective planning. Assigning a priority number to each task might work, but do not be surprised if it doesn't. Separating the tasks into high, medium, and low priorities is a possibility, but it may also be difficult because of a dyslexic's challenges with a sense of direction. Some dyslexics assign different colors to tasks with different levels of importance. Others associate a specific picture with a level of priority. They may use an image of fire for highly important items and a picture of an ice cube, for example, as something that is of low importance. For some dyslexics, writing down the thing that must be done can help. Post-it notes, notepads, pens, and paper placed around the home or workplace can help if not overused. Smartphones and tablets are also great for taking notes. All of this may seem tedious, but it is necessary. Your dyslexic loved one needs a process to help them remember what they need to do and the importance of each task. He or she will have the greatest chance of successfully creating a workaround for this prioritization and planning issue if you work closely together until you find what works for them. To learn more about dyslexia and how you can help your dyslexic loved one, get your copy of Loving Your Dyslexic at lovingyourdyslexic.com. Austin slammed the door and walked into the garage. He needed to step away from Erin for a minute and calm down. He thought to himself, why can't she ever just answer my question? I asked her a simple question about when she wanted to leave to go shopping, and she came back with a story of how some shoplifters raided a store in another city. It wasn't even close to an answer to the question I asked. Is she trying to dodge my questions? Is she trying to make me mad? Why is it so tough to get a direct answer to an unemotional question? Austin took several deep breaths. His thoughts continued. I know the reason she finds it so difficult to give a straight answer, but knowing the cause doesn't make it less frustrating. I know her dyslexia sometimes gets in the way of processing the sounds that make up spoken words, so she has to work extra hard to try to quickly put the different sounds together into words and put the words together into sentences. Sometimes she gets some of the words or sentences wrong. She doesn't want to look stupid by taking too long to answer, so she gives it her best shot at identifying the question asked her, and she answers that question, which may or may not be the one I asked her. I know I should be more patient because it's the dyslexia and not some evil intent on her part, but it happens so often, sometimes it unnecessarily affects the deep trust I have in her. I love her so much, but sometimes I just want to tear my hair out. Simple questions take forever to get answered, and simple questions have to be asked 3 or 4 times to get an appropriate answer. Feeling a little stressed, Austin went back into the house. He found Erin in the living room. I'm sorry for leaving the room, but sometimes I get so angry when you don't answer the question I asked you. Erin looked at her husband intently. I thought I answered it, but in watching your reaction, I guess I really didn't. I'm sorry. I don't mean to do it, but it just happens. I know, and I need to be more patient, but we need to come up with a way of dealing with this part of your dyslexia. We don't talk about it because of the terrible things that happened to you for being called stupid when you were a kid, but this is putting an unnecessary strain on our relationship, and I want to get rid of that strain before it becomes any bigger. Me too, but what should we do? We need to have some kind of signal I can give you that an answer is way off the mark. Like what? Erin responded. Maybe it's something as simple as saying, try again, while asking the question another time. Erin said, okay, but just saying that and asking again may not work by itself. I spent years trying to cover up my dyslexia. When I hear that signal, I might get defensive because I'm embarrassed I didn't hear the right question. And if you get mad, I might get angry at you because it exposes a weakness of mine. Austin thought for a moment. Maybe I could just point to my wrist. You may still get frustrated, but we need to work together, just like everything else we do, to help you answer the question being asked. Okay, let's try that. We are going to beat this thing together. It may take a few times to get it right, but we both can make it happen. And I'm going to try to be more patient, but that may take a few times too. The two then hugged each other and decided to go out and get some food. Many people believe you can outgrow dyslexia. They view the condition as something children have. They feel that as soon as a child learns to read, dyslexia is over and done with. This limited view is inaccurate and it ignores the significant impact that dyslexia has on the adult with dyslexia as well as everyone around them. Certainly reading is the most visible part of dyslexia. Problems with learning to read are how the condition was first identified and defined. But dyslexia has a much greater reach than just reading. And dyslexia can be worked around or overcome, but it is never eliminated. You might think, okay, I understand that dyslexics must work a lifetime to deal with and overcome dyslexia, but how is everyone affected? Isn't dyslexia just a personal thing? 1 in 5 people are dyslexic. That means dyslexia can be a hidden factor in a lot of troubled relationships as well as performance problems at work. Millions of adults have dyslexia and don't know they have it. Testing has become available only recently, and there are millions of adults who have struggled with the different aspects of dyslexia without knowing what caused those struggles. If the dyslexic spouse, partner, or employer is unaware of someone's dyslexia, it's easy to misunderstand or incorrectly categorize performance or behavior problems. The different effects of dyslexia can be misinterpreted as being uncaring or evasive. Poor performance can be attributed to a lack of passion for the work, poor attention to detail, or an inherent lack of ability instead of dyslexia. Think of the number of unjustified failing grades and lost jobs that have happened because someone didn't know they had dyslexia and did nothing to overcome it. And what about the unnecessary arguments triggered by the condition? Dyslexia doesn't go away, but it can be overcome. An adult needs to know that they have it so they can find the specific tools that work for them. Adults need dyslexic testing as much as children. And dyslexia specialists and appropriately trained therapists need to be available to adults as much as school-age children. So the answer is that dyslexia does not go away with age, and the myth that it does disappear hurts adults with dyslexia, the people around them, and all of us. The myth deprives adult dyslexics of an understanding of what causes their pain and how to reduce and eliminate the impact of dyslexia on their lives. If you have a loved one who has dyslexia, learn all you can about it and how to effectively deal with it. Help your dyslexic overcome the different parts of dyslexia. Both of you will feel much better because you took the time to help.